and she gets so frustrated with anything. Like if you go up to her, she'll start barking at you, and she'll just create this big scene. But in reality, if it were to come down to it, she would not bite a single person. On the other hand, my uncle has a bigger dog. He has a pit bull, and of course everyone knows that these dogs are scary. And people think that their bark would mean like, oh my gosh, like back up, back up. But that's only because of their size. And my quote today is, people who make no noise are dangerous. And I would like to give 3 examples of scenarios in which this has taken place. The first one would be school shootings. The second one would be depression and where you see this. And then the third one would be examples from movies that we've all seen. So for the first example, we have school shootings. And then we've seen this in the news and we've seen this everywhere. And we see where it's the kid that gets bullied, the kid that is quiet, the kid that people make fun of, that ends up coming back and doing the dangerous things. When you see kids that are all talk and kids that get in fights often, that in reality they wouldn't do a school shooting. And I feel that it is true that you do see that the kids that are getting bullied and the kids that don't usually stand up for themselves are the ones that have the greater impact when it comes down to the danger that they cause. And then the second one is depression. And I feel that it's hard to tell when somebody is depressed because they don't normally talk about it and they don't normally come up with, like, they don't come up to you and tell you that they are depressed. They're usually to themselves and they don't like cause scenes or do anything like that. And you usually see horrible results with depression. You see suicide, or you see a lot of just a lot of aggression that comes with depression. And lastly, I would like to use examples from movies to hopefully better help you understand info. So in a lot of scary movies, you see that, or a lot of mystery movies, you see that it's usually the person that you least expect to be the killer or the person that's doing danger or the harm to people. That also goes with the quote, because you wouldn't expect a killer to be like, oh hey, look, it's me. Like, it's usually the person that you least expect, and that also ties in with that. So today I talked about how with school shootings, you see it's not the person, it's not who you would expect. And with depression, you wouldn't normally know that the person is going through what they're going through. And in horror movies, you also see that it's not who you expected the killer to be. And I hope that my examples have helped you better understand.
All right, Julie, I like the reference to your grandmother's dog at the beginning as an attention device. I thought that set up the topic pretty effectively, and your interpretation of the topic, I think, is also solid. The preview, you do have a good setup of what's being presented, except your voice drops out a little bit, and I couldn't hear what you said your third point was. I didn't know what it was until you got to that particular point. So you want to be consistent about projecting your voice, and sometimes it fades out a little bit. It did there anyway. The content of the material was pretty well organized. I think you had some good illustrations on each point. Sometimes I think the illustrations need a little bit more detail to make them more interesting, but they fit the general point of view that you were talking about. Presentation issues, as I said before, I think your voice is a little quiet sometimes and you need to project more, but there seems to be a pretty reasonable variety in tone when you're speaking. It's also relatively fluid, so it flows smoothly throughout the most part, through most of the presentation. Gestures, sometimes they're a little bit repetitive, and I notice that they all tend to be like up. You know, it's like all in your hands and your face and your chest, and it's all like this. It's kind of like you look a little bit restrained, and so I think you could be a little bit more expansive. There's a lot more room there, you know, and that's the only thing that maybe makes you look a little anxious. I did notice several times during the speech that you stand with your ankles crossed while you're standing, and so you look a little off balance when you're doing that, and I think you're better off and probably look more confident when you're speaking when you uncross those ankles and have both feet relatively parallel to the ground. You know, so those would be the delivery issues that I'd be thinking about, worrying about in the future. And the end of the speech was, I thought, pretty reasonable. Again, you did a nice job summarizing. All right, thank you.